Good afternoon, everybody. Darren, I want to thank you for taking this interview. As part of the Country Profile project, I decided to interview my friend from Australia. So, Darren, why don't you take it away?
Hi, I'm Darren. I'm from South Australia, the capital city of Adelaide, which is south in the middle. And I'm going to be helping out with a couple of questions for you guys and some insight to the Australian way of life.
Sounds pretty good. So the first question that I have is, what do you feel is a part of Australian culture that is either not widely known or is misconceived?
A part of Australian culture that isn't widely known, I think, would be, first of all, would be a holiday that we have. We have January, we have Australia Day, which is similar to July 4th. It celebrates when Australia was pretty much colonised and was started, and that's where we have a lot of barbecues and fireworks and things like that. What other people don't know about the Australian culture is we are very outgoing. Sometimes people don't get our sense of humour, and as well as other things like food and music artists. We have our own charts, and we have bands and pop stars which are very famous back home, but you guys wouldn't know who they are. And so that's just some things about our culture which people don't know.
Okay. The second is a little more serious, which is there a good standard of living in Australia?
I think we are the lucky country. At the moment, there is a couple of difficulties going on with our politics. And, things like healthcare is free in Australia. We have a very good welfare system. Just other things as in, the classes of society. I think compared to the United States, our middle class is more across the board. It seems to be shrinking nowadays, a bigger and bigger gap emerging between the rich and the poor. But in terms of the standard of living, because of those points I made earlier, as in healthcare being free and property and areas, you're not going to have any really bad rundown area to drive through. That's would really describe a very high standard of living.
Okay. And the third question I have for you kind of runs off of the second question, which is, do you feel that in Australia there is a more prominent social and economic mobility?
Well, question 2 and 3 kind of tie together. I guess with the social and economic mobility in Australia, that middle class gap seems to be disappearing. I used to work in an industry called JSA, which is Job Services Australia. So my role as an employment consultant for people on welfare, and people have really gotten used to the idea of receiving benefits and not working. There are some serious cuts happening back at home now. And we have, Holden, which is an Australian car company owned by GM, is shutting back home. So that means it's going to be 17,000 indirect jobs, which are going to be obsolete. And it's in a very poor, economically challenged suburb as well. So I guess in terms of the mobility of that, I think Australia for the first time is seeing what can happen, and the age of entitlement is going to be soon over, and they're thinking about messing with our Medicare system, our government at the moment, and making so we have to pay for that. So in terms of the mobility aspect, I personally didn't finish high school. I don't have a single qualification degree under my name. I've had lots of great jobs in the past, working in HR, working in recruitment, etc. Because I started work as soon as I left school. As compared to the States, no one will even look at you without getting a degree or finishing school or finishing college, even to get some jobs, which I think, well, I can do that and I would easily be hired for that. But they're kind of like the differences between the job market back home in Australia and in the United States, in terms of the flexibility that there is, to be born into, say, like a not so well-off family and to be able to make it, to have a really good and prosper life, seems to be a lot easier to do back home because of the free healthcare, the good education. We have HECS debts, which are loans. I think you guys have it here, but I think our system is not as expensive and it's more flexible. And so
yes, especially
I hope
education.
that answers the question, Tim.
Especially education seems to be growing more of a freedom rather than a privilege in many other European and other countries.
Sorry.
I
just got a cold.
Yes. The fourth question I have is, do you feel that Australian media represents a fair image of your country?
Well, that's a really good question. Rupert Murdoch, I don't know if people know who he is, but he's the Fox News media magnate, controls 35% of the world's media. He's from where I'm from, Adelaide, South Australia, the owner of Fox News. He owns the Murdoch Press back home, and he has been known to be very unjust, controls a lot of the right-winged opinions, etc. Also, we have a government-funded channel, ABC and SBS, and ABC is known for their very level playing field, no opinion, both sides of the story, just reporting, etc. Sorry for that. And so you have one extreme to the other. You have the Murdoch media magnate, which only reports their side and controls what they want to see and will, help similar to a Republican Party, win an election with full-on press. And then we have the ABC, which we can turn to, which is very current, very treasured and loved, honest and fair news program. I think the Australian media represents a really fair image of our country. There was some debate the other week saying that we do tend to internalise a bit too much with our news in terms of what's going on with politics. But we do have a lot of world and international knowledge as well, which is, normal for any country. But I guess that's kind of, so both.
And the fifth and last question I have for you is, do you feel that as a consumer, that your needs are being met by the Australian retail market?
Yes and no. I visited the United States before, and, you guys have the 24-hour Walmarts. You have the diners where you're waited on, and you have people who are paid a wage of, say, $2 something and rely on tips. I think service is really good in America, and things are a lot cheaper. But when you go to Australia, we earn the second highest wages in the world after Japan. So everything's like inflated because of that. Our wages, minimum of $21 an hour. So if you were to work we don't really have diners, we more have pubs and hotels. And, you couldn't go there and get your bottomless drink. You wouldn't have someone waiting on you. You don't need to tip. So the service really falls because of that, because you get paid at hourly rate. People are not going to care. And also things are more expensive, even though we have cars that are made back home. Say a Ford Focus would be a couple of grand more being back home than what it is here. But then again, the wages are lower here. So in terms of, am I satisfied with the consumer if my needs are met by the Australian retailers. In some ways they are. I think we're starting to relax on trading hours and legislation a bit more these days. And like stores opening on public holidays, or a couple of capital cities, including where I'm from, which didn't do the same. And, it's kind of in demand with, being on the internet shopping and online, and also food places. People want more variety, so we're seeing more American stores open up in Australia. And, that's pretty much it. So you can get everything that you can get here, mostly, or it's like a different brand or different product that's under the same company name. So it's just trying to qualify for different markets, such as Kraft makes Vegemite.
Yes, well, we are quite aware of the whole Vegemite craze in Australia.
Yes.
Well, I really want to
it's
thank
great.
you.
You have to have it on toasted butter.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for taking this interview, and I know my class will thank you. So really much appreciated, and it's great to have someone's insight who lives in that country. So thank you so much.
And if you can't understand my voice when you're playing the video, just keep playing it back. So I sound really annoying.
Again,
no
thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. See ya.